All right, welcome to Bikes, Burpees, and Backhands. My guest today is Mr. Tony Tran. Tony's one of my former students, went to Georgia State. He's got a master's in athletic training. He's licensed and certified in athletic training. He interned at Georgia State University, sports medicine, completed rotations with a lot of high schools and rehab clinics and medical clinics, also went to Texas Tech. We used to call him the missile man in drills. He's worked at an orthopedic clinic in Lawrenceville. Very glad to have Tony, not only just from his expertise, which I'm sure can help me in my athletic endeavors, but also a lot of our followers out at Bike Friendly Atlanta and around the DMTA tennis scene. Welcome, Tony. Pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Never thought I'd be on a podcast, but it's pretty neat. And to be interviewed by you, it's definitely an honor.
well, I don't know about an honor, but we've always got along pretty well. Except for when we started doing running and stuff, everybody used to call me a bunch of names. I'm sure Thomas has thrown a few of those out.
You knew what was best for us, and footwork and all that, very important in tennis, and helped us all out a lot. So thank you. I wouldn't be the missile man without you.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I'm gonna let you get into something that you requested, and I totally understand it. Explain to our followers what an athletic trainer is, or a master's in athletic training, what it encompasses, and what your real job is.
Yeah, sure. An athletic trainer, they are healthcare professionals. We usually get confused with personal trainers, fitness trainers, but in reality, we're healthcare professionals. What we do is we work to first prevent, evaluate, manage athletic injuries. And when I say athletic injuries, it's not just for athletes, it's for all people of different sizes, different ages, since most of the things that we do in life are athletic in nature. So anyone from spraining an ankle on the basketball court to maybe someone having back pain because they're picking up a box wrong. There's with those type of injuries, there can always be a use for athletic trainers. So think healthcare professional before you think about fitness, even though we do know a little bit about fitness, because we do get some education and fitness training and exercise. We're mostly focused on the healthcare aspect of it.
Right. That makes way too much sense. Unfortunately, like you said, a lot of people are misguided or misdirected or just don't know quite the definition of what one versus the other is, and that's a good thing for you to point out. A couple of questions. I guess we'll get right into the questions me and you talked about, and you can pull up some props if you want to. Like I said, this will be on our YouTube channel so that people can view what you have to show them, and that may help them.
Right.
We talked about a little bit about, and I'm always a big advocate of icing, knowing that I don't have any zippers on my knees. I'm probably not going to change much of that until I, pretty much cash the bucket out. But how often should a player ice, a heavily used joint like a shoulder for tennis, and maybe knees and stuff for tennis, or a lot of athletics? How often should they ice, or what should they ice?
Okay. Icing's worked out great for you. I think it's a great tool to kind of help numb up pain, get rid of that pain after a hard workout, maybe after an injury occurs. You slap on an ice bag and the pain kind of goes away. But actually, with new studies coming out, it's actually showing that ice may not be the best thing for prolonged use for general soreness. Now, with that being said, if you just sprain your ankle or twisted your knee and there's lots of swelling and pain, I'm all for an ice bag going on that, just to kind of numb up that pain, numb up that area. But other than that, the inflammation that occurs to a joint or anything after an injury is kind of required by the body to kind of start that healing process. So ice actually kind of constricts the vessels that send those byproducts to the joint to kind of help that healing process,
Right.
if that makes sense. So what I generally prefer for someone who's not injured, but maybe is just having soreness to the body part, muscle, joint, I like to recommend more of like an effective cool down after a workout. So maybe, for example, you, Dave, those long bike rides, you usually follow it up with like a slow cool down to kind of get the blood moving, to help increase lymphatic flow, to kind of get those byproducts out of the muscles without like pressing it too much. And then afterwards, I would probably do some sort of soft tissue mold, such like foam roll. Do you foam roll at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that kind of helps kind of relax the muscles, gets the muscles contracting to kind of move the byproducts out, like lactic acid, what used to knowing, to get those kind of byproducts out to kind of relax the muscle, and then maybe use heat before and after to kind of loosen up the muscles. Because with ice, you usually use it and it kind of stiffens you up. And I mean, that's good for numbing pain, but I wouldn't want my muscles to be even more stiffer after a hard workout than it is, But yeah, those are the new studies. But with that being said, if ice works for you, you used it for years, your body, if it works for you, great, But if you want to try heat with foam rolling and using an effective cool down, studies today show that that might be the better way to kind of manage those soreness injuries and whatnot.
So when somebody comes to you, and this is spawning off of those theories, when somebody comes to you and says they have tendonitis, tennis elbow, what causes tennis elbow? Can it be prevented? Can you, does that make sense? Does ice not stop inflammation or reduce it just to the point? I know taking Advil and ibuprofen and all that, my biggest question always, since I was probably less than your age now, is if I take 2, 3, 4 Advil, since I'm a big old mule now, how does that ibuprofen know where to go? Whereas ice is right to the joint.
Right. Ice is very localized. You're right about that. So let's go back to the tendonitis question.
Yeah.
So tennis elbow, it's usually caused by, improper technique, leading with the elbow, having the wrist in full extension while you're going through that backhand motion. It usually stresses out the tendons on the lateral side of the elbow, and also known as lateral epicondylitis.
Sure.
So improper technique is the main cause. Now, I think the best way to prevent tennis elbow and to manage it is to maybe find a great coach like yourself to teach you proper mechanics. No, that's you. Dave, you didn't endorse me, though, by the way. You didn't pay me to say this. I'm saying it on my own. Okay?
I agree.
Get a good coach like Dave to teach you proper mechanics, to properly hit a backhand or a forehand, to kind of reduce the stress that happens at the elbow.
Okay.
I think that's the best thing for it. Now, treating tennis elbow, if you do have it already, a good way, initially, if there's pain, go ahead, ice it, numb it up, get that pain. Now, does it reduce inflammation with the ice? It constricts the blood vessels, so it may temporarily reduce the inflammation, but again, inflammation's needed for that healing process. So kind of need it to go there. So, don't ice it. Will it make a huge difference? I don't think so. But I think the best way to reduce or get rid of that problem is to definitely have better mechanics.
Okay. That makes sense. So go back to the old theory of like spraining an ankle, or you could even throw tendonitis or anything like that in there. They used to say usually you would ice for 48 to 72 hours, and then after that you start doing a hot cold contrast, which is heat followed by cold, which is getting some blood flow in there, but yet not so much that it starts ballooning back up. Because with a lot of injuries like sprained ankles and things like that, you don't want all that inflammation and all that blood flow, because you got to get rid of that before you start. You hope you don't go to surgery, but you don't want to go in there with a bunch of inflammation or swelling. They're going to wait for that to go down. So does ice not stop that swelling if that's the initial, cause problem?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm glad you brought up that contrast method. That's going from the ice to the heat.
Right.
Now, I mean, you're right about the ice. The normal protocol is to ice for 48 to 72 hours after an injury. Now, with that, I mean, again, the ice, it does constrict the blood vessels.
Sure.
It does help to kind of not get the new fluid in there.
Right.
Which is what we actually want. So when you actually do the ice, it kind of numbs up the pain. You get that good, numbing effect. But
Sure.
then if you follow with heat, you're causing vasodilation. So that's causing the blood vessels to kind of dilate so you can get that new lymphatic flow and blood cells to the injured site to kind of help repair the injury site. So, right. I mean, that definitely is a great way to kind of manage the swelling and the pain.
Sure.
For sure. Now, I think with an ankle sprain, the old idea was they call it RICE, right?
Correct.
The ice, elevation, compression.
Right.
Now we're leaning towards let's take the muscle and the joint through range of motion exercises as pain is tolerated. So you try to move the joint in a range of motion so that you don't lose that range of motion.
Sure.
As much as the body will tolerate. Now, the body is smart. The body will tell you, oh, that's too much pain. You need to back off. That's when you need to, know your limits.
Sure.
But now they're encouraging people to kind of do what you can to kind of speed up that recovery factor and to get back on the court faster.
Sure.
I could say, yeah.
Yeah. So let me pose this question to you. This scenario: Tony Tran sprains his ankle, rolls it on a wide forehand or whatever, try to stop and come back. And you sprain it. We get you off the court. We put some ice on it. We have you ice it down for whatever. And I know Tony Tran as my student. I know he is just itching. It kills an athlete to sit. Right. So to tell somebody like an athlete especially that you need to get up, I think that's kind of a moot point. I think you're going to be getting up the next day or even 2 days later if it's really a bad pain, and you're going to start hobbling around. You're going to get a crutch and hobble, and you're going to know you're going to push it so far because you can't stand to not get back out there. So right. To some degree, I understand one side of high-level athletes' mentality, but then not everybody's a high-level athlete. So that's where you come in and go, okay, Betty Sue or Billy Bob, doesn't matter. You need to get up and walk around on it around the house as much as you can tolerate. And that helps their flexibility to not lose it. I get that. I totally understand that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, in this situation, it helps to have someone like an athletic trainer or a physical therapist to guide you along the rehabilitation stage of what you can and cannot do. Because, I mean, if I just sprain my ankle, I don't want to be walking on it immediately.
Right.
I may do some range of motion exercises with maybe like a TheraBand. I may use this TheraBand to kind of help, get that range of motion by just pumping my ankle to kind of get fluid swelling out to kind of help enforce that joint with that range of motion
Right.
that I want to keep rather than losing.
Right. Anything else on, tendonitis, inflammation of joints, taking care of knees and shoulders? Anything else you want to add to that little topic before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of commercial products out there that you can get. You might see them, with the forearm straps to prevent tendonitis of the elbow. You'll see the patella tendon straps that go around
Right.
the knee. Those things are great for reducing the force that kind of goes through that tendon when you're doing activity. But again, remember that that's like a Band-Aid solution.
Right.
To really fix it, you want to have proper technique, proper conditioning when you're playing tennis or running or jumping.
Right.
The big key of it is being conditioned. Some people go out there and they might want to do 30 miles of biking and
Right.
done it in years. You're gonna have some, inflammation. So again,
just a little bit.
yeah, just a little bit. So get yourself a good coach like Dave and get his advice.
Or the next day you'll be visiting Tony Tran.
You don't want that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, on to a really, I laugh at them, but they're part of the game. Blisters. What causes blisters?
Mm-hmm.
B, how do you treat them? How do you not miss practices? Because as well as in tennis or cycling's a little different because the shoes are clipped on and they're really a part of your foot because you're trying to transfer 100% of your effort through that shoe into that crank, which makes you go faster.
Right.
But tennis, where especially in today's world, I see kids, they wear their shoes like loafers. And then they come off the court and they've got 19 blisters. And I look at them and I go, I don't think I had 19 blisters in my entire career. But then again, my shoes were tied. They were not loosely laced on my foot.
That just brought me back to the days of DMTA when we would be running and doing drills. And then like people next to us would be like running and their shoe would just come off. It's like, their shoe coming off. Like if they can just slip on and off, like that's not good. You shouldn't be running. That's just asking to get hurt,
Yeah.
So, I hope I've smartened up since then. I don't know if I did anything like that, but
you didn't.
Good.
The missile man was always strapped in, ready to go.
Yeah, I think you're hyping me up too much. I think my tennis is okay.
Nah, it was good. Don't worry, buddy.
But yeah, blisters, they're painful. They're not fun to have. So the reason why we usually get blisters, usually on the feet, is because of improper footwear. So one, the shoe is not fitting right. Someone may have a shoe size that's too large, or they're not secured enough, tight enough, like we are just talking about. The shoe is not properly fitted to them. Like some people have flatter feet, some people have higher heart, so they get the wrong shoe, and then they find out that, oh, my foot is moving a little bit too much in the shoe, so it's causing more friction along the sole of the feet, which can cause blisters. So what I would recommend, have a proper fitting shoe. For one, if you have a wider toe, you want to get a shoe with a wider toe box.
Right.
So having dry socks, which you probably know about with biking and being on a tennis court, your feet will get soaked, right? So it's good to have dry socks to change out and to keep the friction as minimal as possible. Because with a wet sock, you're kind of moving a little bit more within that shoe and that sock. So definitely recommend that.
How do you treat one?
So there's a few ways. You can take moleskin. I unfortunately don't have any moleskin on me, But what moleskin is, it's a piece of cotton fabric. It's cotton fabric on one side, and it's a adhesive on the other side.
Right.
So what you can do, I'm just going to grab this kind of gauze pad. So what you can do is take that piece of moleskin. You can find this, at your pharmacy or order on Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon these days.
Right.
So you cut out a piece of moleskin that's a little bit bigger than your blister. You fold it in half, right?
Right.
And then there, you take a pair of scissors. You can cut a semicircle. Not really good at arts and crafts. Hopefully this turns out well. There we go. So then from there, you unfold it, and you have a circle. So your blister would fit right inside that circle. You take that adhesive off, you apply that around the blister, and now you have some form of padding to kind of protect that blister from any more friction. So that's one way. Another way, which I use a lot, is I use second skin squares. So they're these little cooling gel pads that will go right over the blister. It just kind of soothes the blister and the skin, make it less irritable. And then from there, I would put a Band-Aid over that, and then maybe take some Power Flex, which is like a gauze self-adhesive bandage, and wrap that around the foot to reduce any friction that may occur there. So yeah.
So
those are things that I use.
So if you've got a blister that's still got the fluid in it, do you get the fluid out? Do you wait for it to break?
So
yeah,
operation would tell you don't pop the blister. But from my experience, if there's a lot of fluid buildup, I'm gonna get a sterile needle of some sort, and then I'm gonna poke the side of it, drain the fluid, and then use the moleskin around it.
Right.
That'll be irritating for the athlete.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I've been doing for 40 years. I think that's probably where moleskin came from, was back right about the time I needed blister stuff. They came out with moleskin just for me because I had so many of them. Now, that leads me to another question. So you've got these blisters that are now got moleskin on them after a few days or a week or whatever. Like one of my former students, a little older than you, John Williams, used to say, I got 5 blisters between 2 feet. I know how to get rid of them. I said, how's that? And he goes, let's go to the court. Let's wind them down and grind them out. And I was like, yeah, well, I mean, basically, they're going to be painful. You're going to have to go through that transition period. Part of being an athlete is also knowing how to block that out. Do your drill, do your things. We've all had them. We've had them on our hands. We've had them on our feet. Like my wife used to say, God, here's my husband, Dave Matthews, and I would reach out my hand to shake hands, and they'd go, have fun shaking hands with that horse hoof. And I'm like, oh my God, my hand is like a horse hoof because you got blisters all over them. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
So how do you take care of calluses so that you don't want to go back through that blister process? If you shut down for 4 months, you're going to have to recreate some new blisters, and that's just the way that game goes.
But man, I wish they made athletes as tough as John Williams these days, because that wasn't for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's one way to take care of blisters, to kind of grind it out and kind of let the callus form to kind of protect that area.
Right.
You get in the hands for sure. I have little tiny calluses from tennis now. Yeah, I mean, that definitely is one way to take care of blisters. I don't know if I understood your question correct. Are you asking like?
So once you get your blisters taken, let's say you put your moleskin, you take the fluid out of the blister, you put the moleskin over it. You can't tell me that friction is not going to continue. So all you're doing is kind of saying, okay, blister, now dry out a little bit, and let's see what happens. You're gonna form a callus there. I don't care who you are. once you form that callus, because that basically what you're trying to do when you use the moleskin or those little blue pads. I like those, but I wish those blue pads had been around when I was coming up. Man, I'd have had a piece of them bad boys. But what do you do for your calluses so they don't? Because I know sometimes I've had like a blood blister that has occurred below a callus. And then that's a whole nother detailed situation.
Right.
Do you cut your calluses down? I know you use Puma stones to hone them a little bit so they don't get so sharp, or, sometimes they get dried out. You don't want them to dry out because you want the callus so you don't go through that blister process again.
Right. For the calluses, if they get too sharp, I've taken like a nail filer. I just file them down. I don't want to go too far because I want that callus there to kind of protect me. Keep on playing, keep on running, keep those calluses there. They're there to prevent you from getting another blister.
Right.
I wouldn't say get rid of them unless, I don't know, you're superficial like that and you like the way your hand looks, but I think for many athletes, they wouldn't mind having a callus there to kind of protect you from that increased friction.
Yeah, the blister process is never a fun one for anybody. I don't care who it is. It's people. I've seen blisters take people down to their knees. Matter of fact, I saw that one tournament. It might have been the U.S. Open or Australian Open a year ago, where Chung had that. People were talking about the blisters, and the first thing you think about from our perspective is, they showed a picture of his foot, and there was a freaking hole in that foot, and I was like, I was like, okay, my bad, dude.
Yeah.
So my props to you. You're a lot tougher than I thought you were.
Yeah. That was the semifinal match against Federer.
Yep.
And it was very hyped up. I was watching it. They showed that blister, and it was the size of, like, I don't know, my palm.
Yeah.
His foot.
I was like, your foot's gone.
Yeah, those are the rare ones to see, with those pro athletes, they're moving so much on the court.
Sure.
And to have a blister that size is unfortunate. That's going to affect anybody.
Yeah.
Having to pivot and stop and all that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's not much moleskin that would.
That'd be a foot pad.
A foot pad for sure.
Oh, okay. Anything else you want to add to any of the things we've talked about so far?
For tendonitis, general injury rules, injury things, the best thing to do for injuries is to prevent them, right?
Sure.
You don't have to treat or manage them if you don't have them in the first place.
Right.
And, the thing to do for that is just to condition your body.
Right.
Maybe you can't get on the court every day, and you're that weekend warrior that may go out on the tennis court on a weekend and hit 1,000 balls hours at a time, and then have injuries occur. Maybe you're that guy that goes during the weekends. But what you can't do during the week is to work out, move the body, train, lift weights. Doing something that mimics what you do on court is really going to help you on the court.
Right.
Reduce those injuries. Like I always tell my athletes, the stronger your muscles are to support that joint, I think the less likely you are to injure that joint because you have that support.
Right.
So that's one thing to think about.
Yeah, we got one of our mutual friends. How about this one? I'm doing a live feed on Facebook. One of our mutual friends, Mr. Steve Cho, came in. Yeah, he says Achilles tendon pain in the morning after playing tennis. What would you recommend? The first thing I would say, Steve, is why you got Tony as your partner.
Steve, I'm going to tell people a little bit about Steve's Achilles. So he's been having Achilles kind of tendonitis problems for the longest time now. And from the very beginning, I was like, Steve, get yourself some heel cups. There's these gel heel cups that you can get at the pharmacy. They cost like $10.
Right.
What they do is they kind of elevate your heel a little bit to take that stress off the Achilles tendon.
Right.
And I've been telling him to do this for the longest time, and he just now did them. And he told me yesterday at practice, we had tennis practice. He's like, I finally got them, and oh boy, they feel so much. And I threw my racket at him because it took him this long to get them. I'm glad he finally got them, but that's a little bit about Steve right there.
So back in my day when I played college basketball, I had tendonitis of the Achilles tendon. And they used to take me in and tape my ankles every day before practice and before every game. And that kind of subsided it. Does that have anything to, disengaging from the leg and getting, kind of like an opposite shin splint? Is that kind of the theory, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you tape the ankle, you're going to provide some support there. But I think elevating the heel to take some stress out of the Achilles for that particular situation is a little bit more important. But yeah, taping an ankle would provide some support. Depending on how you do it, there's different ways you can tape the ankle for an ankle. But giving the Achilles some support while you're playing tennis or doing whatever, it's going to help give the body some feedback, proprioception feedback to kind of support the ankle. So yeah, it should help. Okay,
good. Steve, get your game going, buddy. I just looked at him on Facebook. On to some cycling questions. Us in cycling, we have basically two or three main injuries, and you've probably seen some of us come in maybe. Number one, we sometimes get our wheels clipped. You're in front of me and something happens and I clip your wheel. Well, I'm the one that goes down, which is okay because I'm the one that clipped your wheel. Yeah. But then we literally just slide on the asphalt. So we come into you and we've got nothing but raw red strawberry looking skin on our thigh. What's the best way? And the real reason why we shave our legs a lot of times is because air is a carrier of bacteria. So instead of waiting till you have that skid mark, you get rid of the hair so that when you have that skid mark, it's a lot easier to treat.
Right. So I don't know too much about bicycling. I was going to actually ask you about that later, but yeah, that sounds pretty nasty.
It's nasty.
I guess if you're me, what I would do is I would kind of clean the area with some saline solution or some kind of hydrogen peroxide just to clean the area. And then if you need to get on the bike again and keep on going, I would take some Vaseline or some kind of triple antibiotic ointment, kind of slap it on there, put a gauze pad on it, wrap it up with some Powerflex or some sort of bandage, and just to keep it covered to kind of protect it from any bacteria or prevent it from getting infected. Sure. And then I would just get back on the bike and keep on going. But if you're a softy like me, probably stop. Don't get on that bike. Clean the area, and then when you're at home and you're in like a clean environment, you can leave it open to kind of let it dry up. Right. Kind of let it scab over. Yep. I wouldn't let it get wet because if you let it get wet and moist, it's going to take a little bit longer to scab up. Okay. Is that what you do? Or do you do anything different?
To me, that's a natural process. And I know how a lot of people, do this and this and this. And I'm like, it's got to scab up. That's how you create new skin. And from there, that scab will start falling off when the new skin comes up under it. That's just the way the body works. Yep. Unfortunately, as humans are not that patient. We want it like that. Yeah. What about concussions?
Concussions.
Yeah.
So, that's like the new hot topic in sports medicine these days. You always see on the news, and all that stuff, for football.
Football especially. Yeah.
Yep. So for me, I work at a high school. So we have like a concussion protocol that we
Sure.
go through. If an athlete goes down, if they lose consciousness, we run out, we evaluate them. We go through an assessment, a standardized assessment to kind of gauge and evaluate the concussion. But some of the signs I'm looking out for are dizziness. You may have blurred vision. You may have nausea. The feeling of wanting to throw up or actually throwing up is a
Sure.
big sign of concussion. So, like, let's say if Dave, if you fall off a bike and you may have these signs and symptoms, I would pull you out. I would do this evaluation. I would look for those signs and symptoms. I would
Right.
test your coordination. And then if I find out that, hey, Dave might have a serious head injury, I'm not going to let him go back and compete.
Sure.
Because the worst thing you can do is let an athlete go back. They fall again. They get hit again. Now you're having second impact syndrome. You can make the head injury a lot worse than it is. And,
Sure.
fortunately, in the past, there's been documented cases of death because of it. So we definitely don't want that. And then some ways to manage a concussion. You generally don't want to overstimulate the brain. So this one is hard, even, for the high school age kids that I work with. They're always on their phones, on the TV screens. We want to limit as much of that as possible because with those devices, you're stimulating the brain too much. So what you want to do is you want to sit, dark room, rest, sleep. You can sleep as much as you want to rest the brain. I know in the past, they always told you to, wake up a person every 5 minutes or something? Yeah. So studies are showing now normal practice is that you can let the person sleep. That's perfectly fine. You can take Tylenol if needed for a headache to let those symptoms subside. And then once those symptoms do subside, you take them through a protocol. What we do is we take an athlete through a series of exercises and workouts throughout a 5-6 day stage process.
Right.
And the workouts get harder to kind of stimulate the body and the brain to see if it can handle those stresses again. And then once you can do a full workout, you can do a full practice without having any symptoms, then let's say you can go back and do your normal activity.
Right.
If you're vomiting and you're having terrible nausea, dizziness is out of control, and the symptoms get worse, you want to go see a doctor.
Right.
Get yourself to an emergency room.
Right.
But yeah.
Anything else you got to add? This has been a lot of fun and a lot of information.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just mumbling off a whole bunch of info. I don't know, is there anything else that you may have questions about?
No, I mean, we actually talked about what is K-tape? What is K-tape? Should they buy cases of it, or does it make you Roger Federer-like? Or not that I've ever seen him with any on him, but I see it around and people are always asking about it.
Yeah, if K-tape made me like Roger, I would probably just be dressed in KT tape. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
So what does it do? Does it just stimulate blood flow, or?
So KT tape also was it a kinesio tape?
Right.
What it does is it's a product that's advertised to provide support to a joint, to a muscle, to an injury. I've also read that it kind of helps to stimulate blood flow depending on how you apply it.
Right.
Now, it's advertised to do all of that without sacrificing any mobility issues.
Right.
So if you think about like an ankle brace or like a knee brace, those things are pretty bulky.
Sure.
They kind of get in the way of doing your sport or activity. So KT tape is a very minimalistic thing to provide support.
Right.
Now, does it work? There's not many, or if any, studies that I've seen that actually, support it.
Sure.
With that being said, I have a lot of athletes that swear by it.
Right.
They use it. That it gives them the support they need without sacrificing mobility, and they love it. So I'll put it on them if they
Sure.
ask,
Right.
and if they have it. But other than that, I generally don't use KT tape. One reason being that it's very expensive.
Wow.
It's like $15-$20 a roll these days.
Wow.
It's not very feasible for me to use it on all my athletes.
Sure.
If they buy it and they have it and they want me to use it, sure, I'll put it on you.
Right.
Let's see. But yeah, I mean, you see all the pros using it. You see the Bryan brothers, I think.
Yeah.
They use it. Carrie Walsh, the Olympic volleyball player, she uses it. She's very famous for it. But I mean, it's worth a try, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. It won't hurt you.
Right. Right. All you do is peel it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think I'll be using any KT tape anytime soon at $15 a roll. Whoa.
Yes. It gets pricey. I mean, but people are willing to do a lot to kind of get back on the, court. So you see it a lot for sure.
Do you see, and I'm sure it hasn't changed, it's just because humans haven't changed. Do you see things, we laugh at golf for having all the gimmicks to teach you a proper stroke and this and this and this. Do you see things like those gimmicks? Am I saying KT tape is one? But, sometimes when an athlete believes in something, it ain't really the product. It's actually your head is actually the one turning the screws,
Right.
Do you see gimmicks like that around, in the athletic field?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you see a lot of people using, technology nowadays,
right,
to kind of improve their performance. Now you see, it's not just a mental thing for like video analysis.
Sure.
I see a lot of people, videotaping themselves, looking at their form at a microscopic level.
Right.
I think definitely a good use for those kind of tools.
Sure.
To kind of evaluate and just kind of maybe see what you're doing wrong and what you're tweaking.
Right.
To kind of, fix something. I think those are great.
Sure.
But then there's like other things like, I don't know, there's all sorts of supplements and things that you can buy over the counter now that, advertise this and that.
Right.
But in reality, it may just be, a sugar pill.
A placebo. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So you see some things that work and you're like, oh man, that's definitely a placebo. It's a mental thing. But, there's things out there that help, like video analysis and all these apps nowadays that, you use, which can be beneficial, I think.
Sure.
For
sure. Well, I think I've got everything answered that I wanted to have answered, especially from my student standpoint. They're like, ask him this and ask him this. And I was like, okay, I'll ask him. You got anything you want to add? I mean, we've pretty much run the gamut on a lot of the stuff you were talking about that we've talked about, and the simple things, but there's a lot more complex things that I would tell them, just like you would, that they need to go, seek a athletic trainer or even a doctor, orthopedist, or somebody to get that ball rolling if it's something bigger that you can't handle the pain of.
Right. I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're struggling with something that's, going longer than like 2 weeks, and things aren't getting better, maybe it's time to seek out a professional that may know a little bit more, rather than, going online, WebMDing stuff.
Right.
They can get their hands on you to see what's going on. and they have more tools to kind of evaluate.
Right.
To maybe,
Right.
As far as questions, I mean, I know you're getting into or you've been in the pickleball world, right?
Right.
Teach, and you have a group that you work with. Are you seeing like injuries that pop up in pickleball that you're not used to seeing? And
no, I think most of them are. The good thing about our group is that most of them, out of about 50 people, most of them play at least a couple of times a week, like a Monday and a Wednesday or a Wednesday and a Friday. So there's a pretty good consistent expectation they get better because they're playing 2 to 3 days. Some of them play 3 days a week, and there's a day off in between. And a lot of them are, 45 and up age-wise, but that gives their body a chance to recuperate. And so they come back and their body gets used to that grind. And this overall group is pretty darn solid about coming back every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that shows to where you don't see all those injuries because it's consistent. Like you said, they condition their body.
That conditioning, that strength and that muscle memory and all the things that go along with being prepared to compete. So
That's right. So a lot of them do that consistently. So from my standpoint, we had one gentleman, he was about 75 when we first started. And, as you get older, your skin gets thinner. And when you fall, that skin is not as thick as it used to be. It breaks, and you need Band-Aids and stuff. And from there, it's just Neosporin and Band-Aids and put it on there and, dress it up. But from there, I tell people every day, I say, if there's somebody new coming in, don't remember when you're 20, because that'll get you in so much trouble that you'll be on your face in a heartbeat. And they're like, really? And I go, really? I see it every day. So take your time, get into the sport, learn a little bit of the gist of it, and then a little more what to expect. You don't get blindsided by a shot that you thought you could get to, but all of a sudden the ball is not going to bounce because it's not a tennis ball. And you go reaching, well, there went your balance. Now you're falling on your face. So, and I've seen that happen a few times, but most of the people in there are very good about keeping their balance and, maintaining a good level of mental awareness as to what they're doing. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that is because I've noticed, because I started playing pickleball some, and for me, this is bad. I know I should, bend my knees and crouch down to pick up the ball. But, with the pickleball paddle, you can't do like the thing you do with the racket to kind of
That's right.
The ball. So you're like constantly like hunching over to pick up balls. And like, I swear my back kills me.
You got to bend your knees. You got to bend your knees.
Yeah.
Bend your knees.
I know. I don't practice what I preach all the time.
Oh, you don't? I won't tell you what I don't do.
But yeah, I was just wondering if you're seeing more back pain and all that.
No, I think most of our players, and like I tell them, everybody's going to have a place in the court they're going to feel comfortable going from or to. And once you've played, I'd say at least about 3 or 4 good hours of pickleball, the gist of where you want to stand and the gist of how aggressive you want to be, you can determine at that point. Up until then, you're just kind of learning the newness of the game and what you do and don't want to do. And that's usually where most people get thrown in there like a tumbleweed, and they're like, oh my God, this is not tennis, this is not badminton. And I'm like, you're right, we call it pickleball. So, that's the one thing. But, I mean, most of our players, they learn to use their hands. And, you got to learn that racket is not – that paddle is not 27 inches long. It's right there at the extension of your hand. And that's a whole nother game you have to learn. It really is.
Yeah, it's really fun, too. So.
Oh, yeah, playing with Sarah's a lot of fun. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I need to get back. You need to do another DMTA thing. I miss those pickleball.
You're more than welcome to come over and play any Monday, Wednesday, or Friday morning. I'll get you in. We'll get you playing. Oh, we have a good group in there. Good advanced players, too. They'll have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
Man, I don't know. You're the podcast guy now.
Well, I usually leave it open for, final comments, whether, Mike, like I said, we both said, if you've got some pain that you can't tolerate, something probably more there than just a ace bandage or something going to help it. You need to go get some serious medical advice from somebody that knows what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're injured, be cautious. Your body is smart. It's going to tell you when you can and cannot do something.
Right.
For sure. Don't live by the Advil. There's guys out there that just pound Advil before they go into court, and they just do that, and they live like that. And that's not probably the most healthiest thing to do.
Right.
To impact your body with all those chemicals.
Sure.
Be smart, condition the body. Don't go out there and do 30 miles of biking after not doing that for 30 years. I don't know.
and that happens. That happens. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I work in a different setting than maybe you're the audience of this podcast, because I deal with a lot of high school students. A lot of high school students be, dramatic, and they don't know the difference between actual pain and that soreness, that kind of, maybe you worked hard and now your muscles are just sore, and, that's something you need to get through to kind of find, a new level for yourself physically.
Right.
I get a lot of that where I work now. So there's real pain where there's sharp and it's numbing and you can't move. That's one thing.
Right.
Pain. But then it's just soreness and you're just achy. Throw a hot pack on and foam roll and stretch.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep. See you tomorrow.
Well, all right, Tony, I appreciate you helping me out, man, and hopefully this will help a lot of other people get through their, blisters and injuries and minor injuries and tendonitises and stuff, and will help them get back on the court or back on the pickleball court or on the bike, a lot faster. And that's always everybody's wish, is to keep exercising and moving.
Yep, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on. I never thought I'd be on a podcast, and it's good to, for you to be my first. So it was fun.
I'm very honored, and like I said, I always regard your expertise, like I always have, regarded your opinion very highly, because you're a very highly intellectual young man, and